Hey, welcome, pastors and ministry leaders, again this week to our Marry the Vision video email and video session. Man, I'm so glad that you joined us today. We are on an exciting journey as we're talking about today God's divine positioning. That you and I, our churches, our ministries have been positioned at this moment in time. In the midst of all the chaos that's going on, we have been positioned for such a time as this. I pray that this will be an encouragement to you. I pray that it will also give strength to you in you advancing the mission Christ has given you and encouraging and strengthening you in your personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Matter of fact, I've been asking the Lord over this time, touch our eyes, Lord. Help us to see what you're at work doing. Help us to see what you're doing in the earth, because we have a lot of things with active wars that are going on, cancel, woke culture, all kinds of racial tensions. We've gone through the political, and it hasn't ended, right? I mean, such political division that's going on. And in the midst of all of that, you and I are positioned at this time by God for such a time as this. So I remember asking you a question the last couple of weeks. First one is, what are you focused on now? Knowing that over here, we got a lot of, difficult chaos going on. And are we so focused on that it's limiting our vision of what Jesus is doing? Maybe even weakening our faith or our trust in God as we ought, or his word, while this is going on. And then over here, God's at work. There's something he's doing, and do I see that? Do I recognize that? And I gave you the example, remember, about the corrective lenses, that sometimes something is being displayed, but we don't see it as clearly as we ought to. And therefore, we get those corrective lenses to help us. It enhances, improves our vision. That's what I'm asking. Lord, help to enhance and improve our vision as a leader on what you're doing. Help us to focus on things that, in the midst of all of this chaos, God is not surprised with any of it. And as a result of it, he has positioned us for such a time as this, so that we can make an impact and bring a limiting of the attack of the enemy. Won't stop all of it. It's going to keep going, but limiting it so that we can salvage lives. Help people come to know faith in Jesus Christ. Help people grow, even backslide, people that hadn't been in church in years because of tough times, bad choices. And all of a sudden, there's a renewed focus and energy to want to be in the house of God. Why? Here were 4 things I mentioned. We'll talk about number 2 today. 4 things that we need to focus on, be focused on, of what God is doing, divinely positioning us. I said, number 1, realize Jesus Christ is still building the church. Still. Never stopped. No matter what you've heard, no matter what weakness in the church, no matter what failure of a ministry, even if you yourself have failed, personal failure, your life is not over. It's not done. God is still going to use you. He can still use you. He can turn your mistake into a powerful message of restoration and forgiveness that can help others. God can do that, and he will do that. You see, he is still building his church. You can go back and watch that video. We got into some things about the phases of building, evangelism, equipping, establishing. Really good content. Minister, that would be some good content for you to revisit for yourself, as well as you could even minister that into your church. Okay? Feel free to use those outlines that I have. Today, I want to talk to you about what should we be focused on? Well, since Jesus is still building the church, he's building it. Number 2, what should we be focused on? God still uses the church to impact people's lives. Now, listen, I know you may say that sounds simple, but I'm telling you, it's not as simple as it sounds. God is using the church. That's what he wants. He is using it as an instrument to impact people's lives with the message of the gospel. Impact their lives with the love of Christ. Impact their lives to know what forgiveness and restoration truly is. God uses the church, a flawed group of people, an imperfect group of people, a diverse group of people. he uses it as a way to reflect his amazing grace, his great love, and he uses it to show how in the midst of their imperfections and weaknesses, he still reveals his glory, and it transforms lives. I want to give you an example of that, and that's my own life. Many of you, if you don't know this, I'll mention it to you. You know, I grew up, and as a teenager, you know, for myself, I was drawn from a very young age toward wanting to know about God. I really was interested. I enjoyed going to church, but I also enjoyed music. It was like a passion of mine. I loved listening to music. I started playing musical instruments at a very young age. And so by the time I was 16 years old, I was playing drums, bass, and guitar. Now, at that time, I was playing more guitar than anything else and playing with a band, and the band became popular. And, you know, we're doing gigs, and, you know, with all that comes the drugs and the ladies, and you're signing autographs and you're feeling important and all that stuff. And while this is going on in my life, and I'm thinking, wow, life is pretty good, because here I am now. I'm 18 years old by this time, and I'm dating a model that I'm doing well, like in a career. I love doing what I do. I'm playing. I love the attention I'm getting, signing autographs, having whatever drugs that I available. They were there. I never lacked for any of that, and just thought, hey, life is great, you know. And yet in that, what was happening is all of a sudden people, from family members to others, start coming into my life and start inviting me to church. They start coming in, and what they're doing is they're saying, hey, I'm going to this church service, or there's this Christian concert. It was kind of like on the tail end of the Jesus movement, Jesus revolution that happened in America, you know. And so they're inviting me, hey, you want to come to this? And I didn't accept it. I said, no, I'm not interested. I remember once being in a band meeting, and we just got finished with practice, and, you know, we had roadies and stuff like that were there in techs that did lights and stuff. And you're doing that, and here I'm 18, maybe 19, probably 19 at that time, and I'm sitting in a kitchen, and I'm sharing with one of the guys who was a roadie who helped us, and he was inviting me to a church service, and they were having like a camp meeting. I didn't know what that was, and it's going to be church services, but they got Christian concerts that are going to be outside, and weather's nice, it's summer. Why don't you come join me? And I literally looked at him and I went, what are you doing? What happened to you? Now, he looks at me and he says, Ron, I've had a change in my life, because I've known him for years. I did drugs with him. I went to concerts with him. He was a roadie, so he was at most of our shows, So I knew this guy. And he's like, but something happened in my life. I started getting connected to church, and then gave my life to Jesus and started literally sharing Christ with me. And I said, whoa, okay. I said, listen, I love God. I just love him different than you. That's what I said. I love God. Well, things go on. I didn't accept Christ. My mother comes to Christ. She starts watching Christian television, going to church services, and I wasn't living in the home, but she's now inviting me to go on. I'm going, Ma, I remember sitting down with her while she was watching Christian television and mocking it, to go, Mom, all they want is your money. Come on, Ma, get over this. Oh, how could you say that? How could you be so cold-hearted? I mean, Jesus is making such a difference in my life. I love reading the Bible. Like, Ma, come on. Now, again, this is where I'm at, because I think my life's good. Everything's cool. And yet, when I was really young, I did have a desire for God. I liked going to church. I never read the Bible, but I did enjoy going to church, and I always said I believed in God. Always. If somebody would have told me I didn't, I wouldn't have believed him. I said, no way. I do believe in him. I just don't believe like you. I'm just not like you. So now my work life gets adjusted, because I was working nights so that I had days free, go to practice, and then obviously could play at nights, So, that I did both, because I'm used to it, because I'm playing at night. So, but I was also compensating. I'm working nights at a place. And then I get transferred to days, and there's this gentleman. His name is James. And James remembered seeing me do a concert in the city that we lived in. And he was there. It was a very full place. That venue was very full. I remembered the concert. I remembered the venue. I do not remember meeting him, but he said, you threw out picks and I got a pick and da-da-da. And I listened to his story. I said, okay, great. Well, then he says, Do you think maybe I could go to lunch with you sometime? Maybe we could. Sure, yeah, because they had an area that where the employees could go and have lunch and stuff. And so I did that, and he invites me to church, and I'm like, James, I got so much going on in my world right now. I really don't go to church. I really don't go. No, I'm going to church. Oh, God. But he kept asking day after day, kept asking me to go to church, and I was really getting upset. Matter of fact, I said to him, James, if you don't stop, I'm going to hit you. Stop. Like when I'm ready, I'll go. So here I am. I'm a rock and roll guitar player. I got these people coming into my life from roadies to family to these people that a change of hours. And I'm thinking, oh, what in the world's going on? And I'm sitting on my amp one day downstairs in my basement. And I'm just playing through a song and I'm thinking about these people. And I remember something that one of them said. One of them asked me, hey, if I told you that the building was on fire and you believed me, what would you do? I said, I'd leave the building. I wouldn't stay here. I said, when's the last time you opened up the Bible to find out what Jesus said about eternal life? I was like, because honestly, I hadn't opened the Bible. I had one. I just didn't read it. I didn't read the Bible. And I thought about that. So in thinking about it and thinking about things I had read and seen, because just a little bit, I said to myself, to no one else but to me, Lord, if you're everything that you say you are, I'm a fool not to follow you. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm really foolish. Now, I'm talking to myself. Never told anybody that I had that conversation with me. But what's happening? Remember how I said God is using the church today to impact people's lives? All of those people went to church services. All of those people got impacted. They came to Christ. All of those people ended up, they were already in my world, but they divinely intersected with me differently because Jesus impacted their life. And now they're inviting me to go to church with them. And so I went into work and I said to that gentleman, James, I'll go to church with you on Sunday. Thinking, and I said, James, I'll go with you, but you don't have to ask me anymore. I said, I'll go. And that church service impacted my life. Never thinking that it would. I went because I didn't really have a negative about church. I prioritized my life and church wasn't important to me, but I always said, God, I love God. And I didn't hate church, going to church. I just love God, but don't love him like you. But I saw things in that church service in the worship. It's amazing how God can touch your eyes. I saw, and I remember saying to myself, I thought I love God. These people love God more than I've ever seen. Because I've never been in a meeting like this before. Wow, look at this. The preaching, it just really personally just gripped my heart. I felt like they were speaking right to me. Now, I know, pastor, ministry leader, you understand. You've probably heard these things, but I'm trying to help us understand something. And that is, what am I to be focused on? God is still using the church to impact people's lives. How does he do it, though? How? It's not just in always the church service where something miraculous happens. He intervenes in those day-to-day, may be looked on as coincidences, but they're not coincidences. They're not. God is positioning you, the people in your church, and things are being shared. And so what do? I go to church, and you know what happened the very next day? That was a Sunday, Monday. I turn on my television in my apartment. I didn't watch Christian television, but I turned it on, and it just so happened to be at that time, because remember, my days changed. I shifted from nights to days. So I'm sleeping at night, not normally used to that, turned on the television, and I don't even know what the show was, but there was a Christian minister speaking. And while they're speaking, they literally pointed at the television and said at the camera, because now I know I've been on television many times, but they're pointing at the camera and they said, wherever you are right now, I know God is speaking to you. You have thought about giving your life to Christ, and today's your day. Right now, wherever you are, and said, your house, the apartment, whatever, fall to your knees right now and pray this prayer. And I did. I fell to my knees. I prayed the prayer. I went into that office where I worked, and that gentleman who invited me to church met me. That's one day later after the church service, and he says to me, you accepted Christ. And I literally said to him, how do you know? He goes, you look different, man. I can tell. Folks, ministry leader, never misinterpret what may look like just informal, routine, normal. Never look at that in God's kingdom, that it isn't supernatural. A conversation, an invite, something. God uses it because it's part of his church and he uses it to impact people's lives. Amazing. All of a sudden, my desires changed. I wanted to read the Bible. I was so hungry, I couldn't wait. I had to get a Bible. I would read and read. I still do it. Want to read. It's spiritual nourishment that feeds me, like the body. The human body needs food. I just had to read it. And then I learned how to pray. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't have a prayer habit. I literally humbled myself and asked a Christian brother who I knew had a prayer habit because I loved listening to him when he prayed. I asked him, could you teach me how to have a prayer habit? Because I don't know how to do it. And he would come to my house and kneel with me and help me to learn how to pray, just every day praying for my family, for my life, for our church, for our political leaders. Just pray. Taught me. And then I couldn't get to enough services. My desire, all of a sudden, I didn't want to play in the band anymore. I quit the band, actually, and my life got threatened. And it got threatened outside of a church service. They pulled me out because they said, you're ruining our career, man. And I said, I'm not trying to do that. Find somebody else to replace me. This is what I want to do. I want to be in church. I want to be around this fellowship. I do. I want to be around it. I like reading the Bible. I'm learning how to pray, and I'm attending church services. I wanted to hang out with the community of faith. They call them small groups or cell groups. I wanted to go to them. So I was going every night to almost something that was going on because I wanted to hear more about this wonderful person, Jesus, that I'm so in love with, that community of faith. See, your desires. How does it impact people? Desires begin to change. Pastor, ministry leader, don't give up, because that's what discipleship is. Don't give up. Don't quit preaching. Don't quit praying. Don't quit sharing. Don't quit recognize that even what may be perceived as a common conversation, if you're sharing Christ, if you're sharing scripture, if you're sharing about his love, God will use even what is common to use it to be supernatural. That's why I say, I even caution, we should not be looking on it as common. It's supernatural. Miracles can happen. Transformation. God is still using the church to transform lives. Later on in years, obviously, I became a pastor to church. I watched prostitutes come to Jesus at the altar and become prayer warriors, literally helping and being in prayer meetings. I watched lesbians and homosexuals come to Christ on their own. They came to Christ. They were invited to a service. I didn't know who they were, and I didn't know their sexual orientation. They came to Christ and wanted to go back and share with people in their sphere. There is another way. There's a better way. Something changed inside of them. I have watched people be healed of terminal diseases that only God could have done. I've watched it happen. I've watched transformations occur that only God could have done. So I'm encouraging you. Do you know somebody whose life has been transformed? Has your church heard testimonies? If you know somebody that's been impacted by the church, think about it today. Hold on to it. God is still using the church to impact people's lives. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. I don't care how many people want to belittle the church, how they say it's irrelevant. They don't want to go. These are dumb people. They're stupid people. They're just faith. They don't have any logic or reason. I don't care what they say. The truth of the matter is Jesus Christ is still building the church because God is still using the church to impact culture, impact individuals, impact marriages, impact people. He is using the church to do it. So if you know people that are being impacted, hear their story, listen to their story, and hear God, how God has positioned you, that service, that message, positioned you for such a time as this. I know how I feel when somebody sends me a message, even though they're a minister, and tell me how long they've been ordained, even when how long they've been pastoring, even from another country. I've gotten emails and messages from bishops that tell me how many churches are under their care and how large they are, and yet something like this has truly impacted them. You see, here's the truth. The church isn't perfect, and it never will be. Just because Jesus is building it, as long as it's on this earth, it's never going to be perfect. That's part of his plan. The church isn't perfect because it's filled with humans who are influenced by their experiences, others, certain ways of thinking, and they're limited. They're influenced by their own human limitations. And as leaders, we are all limited. And we're not perfect. Think about it. But that does not stop the plan of God. Notice this verse. I want to say something to you, and I'm going to read you a verse as I wrap this up. Hear me, and I mean it. Lean in. Ministry leader, pastor, whoever's watching this, lean in. You need to hear this. We're going to run into the clay of human weakness while experiencing the power of God's excellence. I'm going to say it again. We, the church, you, me, we're going to run into the clay of human weakness. Why? Because we're still weak. No matter how much I know about God, there's so much I don't know, and I'm still going to make mistakes. We're going to run into the clay of human weakness while experiencing the power of God's excellence and glory. Why? Because God doesn't keep from doing what only He can do because we're weak and limited. No, that's the power of the gospel and the beauty of the church. Notice 2 Corinthians 4, verse 7. Paul writes and says, but we have this treasure. What treasure? Christ in us. The treasure of Christ's life, His Spirit in us, and our connection to Him as a believer. We have this treasure in these jars of clay. For what reason? Notice, to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. Wrapping this up, what is Paul saying? He wants the world to see that it isn't because of our perfection, our strength, how good we are, how smart we are. It is never to be about us. While we do grow in the Lord, our knowledge grows, our love grows, all that happens. The message is not to be about us. It's to be about Him, and that we are still weak and we are still jars of clay. We are still imperfect, and yet God's message, the gospel, is a perfect message to an imperfect world, and God will confirm His word. He will bring restoration out of absolute brokenness. He will bring glory out of the clay of human weakness. He will do it because that's His plan. We are positioned for such a time as this. Well, pastor, ministry leader, I pray that this has been helpful and encouraging. Please share it with another pastor or ministry leader. Let them know what it's done for you. Pass it on to them. As a matter of fact, if you know a Christian, a believer, a business leader, a ministry leader who is struggling because of a failure, because of something that has happened, and they feel like their life or their ministry is over, please share this with them. It's not over. There's a new season that can come to them. God is doing something in this hour. He has positioned us for such a time as this. Them intersecting with this video, with this content, could be divine positioning for them. So share it with them, okay? If you haven't signed up, go to our webpage, sign up for these weekly emails. You'll get a downloadable PDF. It's really cool. I think you'll appreciate that. Or go to our YouTube channel. You can browse other videos that are there. Know this, I love you. I am praying for you, for your ministry. And I am committed to your ministry success in Jesus Christ. See you next week.
Hi, I'm Ron Jutze, and I have an exciting announcement. I'm pivoting my Leadership Essentials course so that anyone can purchase and take it at their own pace. We are making it more affordable for only $99. Now, this is perfect for people who are looking to invest in their own leadership development. I'm also offering a special subscription add-on for leaders to receive weekly live coaching from me for only $50 a month. In all the years I've done coaching, I've never offered this. It's exclusive to our Leadership Essentials course purchase. Now, to those of you who have already purchased the course at $299, you already have access to these weekly live coaching sessions as part of your price. Just click on the link below and sign up today for this leadership enhancing course.